Ever wondered what the entity actually thinks of the survivors in-game? Does it like them? Does it hate them? Or is it somewhere in between? Hey everyone, today we're going to try and figure those things out. To discern the entity's opinion, we can look to the lore, the perks, and things like flavor text too. All of these things can help to paint a picture on what the entity thinks. Does not like them. Cheryl is a character seemingly able to partially bend the entity to her own will, as a result of her power. It obviously has more power than she does, but the fact she can do this at all is quite significant. With her perk Repressed Alliance, she can get the entity to block off a generator, a significant and substantial action. She can also use her power to protect herself after getting up from the dying state with Soul Guard. All of these are powerful actions, and none necessarily seem as if the entity is allowing them, but instead accepting them. I think Cheryl likely does create lots of emotion for the entity, but it probably doesn't like her powers having such strong effects. Yoichi seems possibly disliked by the entity due to being hated by Sadako. The entity and Sadako appear very close, and therefore it likely doesn't favour Yoichi too much. He's also one of the strongest survivors in the realm with proven ability of foresight, which is likely something the entity doesn't want. In a similar way to Cheryl, Yoichi has clear powers that aid him in the trials and probably make them a little unfair to a certain extent. Where most characters' memories are wiped after each trial, his probably can't because of his powers, which is sort of indirect defiance on his part. Haddie is a character again with powers that seem able to resist the entity and its realm in some way. None of these, by the way, are on par with the entity in power, but due to having their own, they do sort of mess with it and make it harder for them to be dealt with. In the realm, Haddie is able to gain considerably powerful effects by honing her power to see into the Ravage. With this ability, she reveals scratch marks which she isn't meant to be able to see. She manages to enhance her repairing abilities, and she's the only character, I believe, to be able to apply the blindness status onto killers. All of these things showing just how strong she is and how much she can bend the trial rules through her understanding and power. She also kind of exposed things surrounding the entity's business quite a bit, which it probably didn't like. It's better for the entity to have her in the realm than out of it. Jonah is an odd one because he's a character the entity put a lot of work into getting, planning out a means to take him and confuse him by providing him the numbers, which detailed when and where he would be taken. The intent seemed to be to shatter his worldview and logic, yet in the realm he still seems more logical and lacking in emotion than ever. It almost feels like the entity failed in this case and simply keeps him in the realm out of spite almost for the work it put in. He does have inner conflict over the deaths he caused, but he's otherwise a very logical person who seems to rely on this logic too for the realm. Vittorio is a character who basically figured out how to get into the realm through research. After that, he ended up wandering around the realm freely and even seemingly entered into the Observer's Tower. This is likely viewed as quite a defined action in the entity's perspective. Him being so free in the realm for such a long time before eventually entering into the trials is surely something it dislikes. Not only this, but Vittorio has clear understanding and knowledge of the entity, but also those who combat it, like the Observer and previous observers. He has perks such as Fogwise and Potential Energy that show off his power in the realm through his understanding, a character the entity has its many eyes on. Discontent with them. Kate is a very positive character and uplifts all of the survivors in the realm. This is debatably a positive or negative depending on how you view it. Out of the realm, Kate fought off the entity's claws and escaped its grasp, which is practically unheard of. She shows clear resistance too to its mental manipulation, being able to eventually clear her mind of it and continue on with her music. Despite just being a human, she does seem to have some resistance due to her positive attitude, I would argue. This leads us into our next character. Rebecca is very similar in this way, being a very positive character who manages to see most situations as manageable and twist them into a positive light. This maybe isn't the best for the entity, who preferably wants you to be afraid of the never-ending emotion-draining games it creates. Nothing in her perks, for example, suggests she is panicking really, and instead is just standing there with her thumbs up and smiling. No matter what's thrown at her, she sort of just seems to react positively regardless. Another great positive in this new year is the brand new G Fuel Year of the Dragon Shaker bundle. I'm partnered with G Fuel and they recently released released this special bundle, including this limited edition shaker cup, but also an envelope with a surprise G Fuel gift. Not only that, but also 3 single serving packs of favourite G Fuel energy flavours. A perfect place to start out with G Fuel in the new year, and a great thing to pick up among the many available flavours. Be sure to pick yourself up this special celebration bundle over on gfuel.com. You can further get 20% off your order by clicking my affiliate link or using code AZHY at checkout. Élodie and Felix are 2 characters the entity seemed quite set on getting, and partly down to the defiance of their parents and the role of the Imperiati as a whole. I'm not sure if it likes them or hates them, but I think maybe they are on the less favoured side. After all, their parents were defiant against it and did try to fight it, and they were slowly being trained up to do the same, with Élodie even somewhat fitting that role by the time she was taken. The both of them awoke the entity back in the Blight's cave on Dire Island, then managed to live with what they had seen for years to come. I have to think the entity doesn't like that. In those years, Élodie especially studied the realm and the supernatural, and both of them seem very attuned and aware of the realm upon arriving. They do both definitely create emotion for it and serve it in that way, but I do think there's sort of a permanent feeling of discontent from the entity due to them being so tough to get. Ash is a character that seems initially a little defiant, however it equally seems the entity messes with him a bit. It doesn't seem too threatened and is more open to having fun with him. This doesn't necessarily mean it likes him though. Ash did sort of just stumble into the realm too, seemingly by accident, when he misread the words from the Necronomicon and summoned the entity. In the realm he has a number of fairly defiant perks too, such as his ability to take more damage, wiggle off faster, and apply endurance when reviving others. These all sort of seem to happen as a result of him being the chosen one of his universe, a character with unshakable luck, and the ability to always escape something. He was the first survivor to speak and seems fairly confident too. The entity isn't threatened, I don't think, but there is some discontent there, I would say. He enters the realm after all, and his first words are groovy. Content with them. Leon and Ada are 2 characters I get the impression the entity is just content with. They both do their job in the realm and give hope to others, but equally aren't too scared themselves, suggesting the entity favours aspects of them but dislikes others, leaving it overall just content. They each have some perks that suggest some favour, but equally could be interpreted as just sort of skills the 2 naturally have as experienced individuals when it comes to big scary monsters. Jane is a character that is all around a good survivor for the entity's realm when it comes to what it wants. All of the core survivor categories are something that she succeeds in some way, having clear empathy and altruism, having an objective focused mind, and finally a level of boldness. With this all said, I don't necessarily get the impression that she has the entity's favour in any way. Maybe head-on could be interpreted as a favour of sorts, due to it stunning the killers. I tend to see it more as the entity allowing something like that as a result of her being an effective survivor, as none of her perks really suggest favour, at least not directly. A character the entity is quite content with, I think. Quentin is in a similar spot to me, having a lot of the core attributes to be a good survivor, but not necessarily standing out to gain particular favour. The one perk that maybe does suggest some is Wake Up, which reveals the exit gates and could suggest that the entity is aiding his aura reading abilities in this instance, with exits rarely being revealed in this way for the survivors. Dwight is a character that acts as the unlikely leader in the realm. With that said, nowadays I don't think he quite has that position anymore, with there being a number of other characters who would seem more suited to that role. His perks all still mainly reflect leadership and coordination, and could benefit the entity in the sense of giving the other survivors hope. The entity has clear favour for Dwight, with him getting lots of cosmetics and still having solid perks. However, I do think he has fallen out of being one of the most favoured by the entity over time, with his role as the leader slowly drifting away from him. His sort of purpose for being taken is kind of gone. Therefore, I think the entity is more just content nowadays. Yun-Jin is a character that may initially seem very liked due to her more questionable morals. However, the entity likely doesn't want a self-serving and self-centered survivor. It wants someone who is altruistic too, with that being one of the 4 core elements needed to do well as a survivor. She maybe does create emotion by her betrayals or self-serving moments, but for the most part she probably isn't overly beneficial for the entity. Her main reason to be in the realm, I think, think is to be the foil for Trickster. She provides a unique role, and so likely makes the entity content at least. Jill is a character with clear determination, and maybe a little bit too much of a clear head in tough scenarios that might result in becoming less favoured, but still okay in the entity's eyes. Her perks are very strategic and seek to overcome the killers in different ways, which may be a benefit in some ways to the entity, but a negative in others. Her perks center on taking away the means killers have of catching survivors, stopping gen kicks, using totems, and shortening down heals. A good foil for the killers, but not someone who's going to be overly scared of the realm, I imagine. Actually likes them. Thalita is a very determined character, and one that is likely favored by the entity. She's another I could see fulfilling some kind of leader role. She's able to silence her vaults, repair generators faster when working with others, and move faster when teamed up. The survivor side after all is all about working together, so I do think these things point to the entity's favor. A character who can unite the survivors and get them to work together well, providing positive outcomes when she succeeds. She also escaped the Skull Merchant, likely causing more emotion in that regard too. Renato is a compassionate survivor and one with seemingly high favor with the entity. He has the ability to run the fastest out of any of the survivors, and further is able to completely recover from exhausted in exchange for a health state. He seems very favored and viewed by the entity as a valuable survivor, providing him with the tools to create frustrating situations for the killers, but doing so in a way that the entity seems to allow. There's usually a trade-off for these things. Much like his sister, he also escaped the Skull Merchant, taking a hit but managing to get away, which is probably beneficial for the entity too. A sore spot for the merchant. Mikaela is a character the entity sort of obsessed over and kind of terrified on multiple occasions as it stalked her throughout her lore. She does sort of fight back in some cases, but it all seems to be on track in terms of the entity's plans. Initially implanting dreams of the realm and then slowly ramping up the horror until it takes her in front of a live audience. This all sort of seems to be the plan though with Mikaela, playing into her ability of clairvoyance and slowly making her gradually more fearful of what's to come. When Mikaela was taken, she also introduced boons to the realm, which I imagine is overall a positive for the entity, and one of the big reasons why she was targeted. The entity still has control over her, and has managed to sort of prepare her for her entrance to the realm with its many small trials and interactions prior. Alan is a character who's got some definite experience with this type of thing, and also a character that the entity took inspiration from when creating the flashlights. I think it's probably a bit of an Alan fan. He is stated to have a keen insight, but this seems less threatening, I would say, than some of the other characters with supernatural experience. It's less of a rebellion and more of just a general knowledge and understanding. Overall, I think the entity likes Alan, and probably likes the drama and narrative he brings to the trials. Zarina is a character who seems to have a good amount of favour in the realm, with her ability to do quite powerful things like transferring her own health to another survivor. There's a trade-off there, and she becomes the obsession when she does this, which does make me think it's all under the entity's control. Off the Record and Red Herring both allow for very unique effects too. Zarina overall is a good character for the entity, I think, being someone who is altruistic but also fights back. She likely does also have some kind of interest in the realm too, despite its horrors. She seems relatively calm, and almost appears to undertake it all like an investigation. David is a highly altruistic character who has a lot of strength within the realm. His perk Dead Hard, despite its nerfs, is still very powerful, and speaks to his favour but also determination. Lots of David's perks come from him simply being experienced with taking on a lot of damage. With no mither he can completely stop bleeding, but he has to be injured, and with Dead Hard he has to be injured too, meaning even these strong effects do come at a cost. Overall though, David's high levels of altruism and sheer ability to probably frustrate the killers with him tanking so much likely makes him quite favoured in the entity's eyes. Nancy and Steve are two characters in good favour with the entity, both having abilities that sort of reflect their favour. Sure, they did leave for some time, and I'm not too sure why in terms of lore, but their perks do reflect their favour with the entity quite substantially. Steve with his ability to instantly heal a health state and pause hook timers to punish killers. His perks mainly center around stopping things that shorten the trials, which makes me think he is in definite favor with the entity, encouraging that side of him out more in powerful ways. Nancy has the impressive power of healing within the entity created lockers, and further being able to view her own scratch marks. These things appear more entity given too, and not like Haddie's case, where her powers seem to be the reason for her ability to see scratch marks. Both highly favored characters, which is odd as they did at one point disappear from the realm. Yui is a character with a good level of favor I think, being largely fearless, with her standing down the Oni with not so much as a flinch as one of the first things she did when entering the realm. I think taking her was definitely a conscious choice on the entity's part, with her role being to fight back more and cause frustration with the killers. She's able to restore pallets, something unheard of across survivor abilities, and she's further able to stop bleeding and make others wiggle faster. She's a huge source of motivation for others clearly, and would quite likely fulfill the leader role within the realm. Feng is a character who sees the realm almost as a challenge and a place to compete. She has many beneficial perks that allow her to see the killer's aura, run faster, and also negate generators from exploding. However, these things mostly seem to come down to Feng's skills over anything else. She is definitely going to create a lot of emotion for the entity, with her having a tough time before the realm. Her reliance on it to sort of give her more purpose and direction is definitely questionable, but equally something the entity probably likes. Gabriel is a character who seems favored due to having quite a unique story for the realm, and having his many clashing emotions that come from him discovering he's a clone. He's also a huge motivator for Singularity to perform well, due to Hux absolutely despising him. Gabriel further has a lot of perks that suggest favor, with Made for This even describing that he was born to survive. He's able to find useful tools in trials, and figure out problems well on the fly. He's a good survivor, and was ultimately made for this. Tapp is a valuable character, with him set on the idea in the realm that he must protect and save everyone. A noble idea, but something that isn't possible, and will likely be a good cause of emotion for the entity. His perks center around aura reading, but also his determination and awareness when in the trials. He has some experience of a trial-like game after all, and this likely carries over to the realm to help him understand them. Tapp is a character with guilt for his past, but a desire to protect all he can now that he's in the realm, which will create a lot of varying emotions for sure. Claudette has many benefits in the realm, such as her ability to self-care and even collect different things from around the campfire to aid in her healing. Not many other characters appear to have that kind of freedom or skill. Claudette was also one of the entity's first picks for the realm, making her quite favored I imagine. She seems to be in favor with the entity for sure, retaining strong abilities over the years, and even able to harvest plants from the campfire and bring them into a trial. A big deal when usually survivors can bring nothing aside their items in. Meg is a character with definite favor too I think. She's also one of the first survivors to have been taken, and has one of the strongest overall perk sets on the survivor side, capable of incredibly powerful things like instantly healing health states and sprinting far quicker than others. She's further got the ability to silence her movement and actions that could alert the killer. She's a character with a tough past, and likely a lot of inner pain due to her leaving behind her sick mother when she was taken. Meg never gets that closure. She's also a character who does enjoy running, but probably not so much in the context of the realm. Ripley is an interesting character, with her seemingly able to actually scavenge items in a similar way to Claudette, with Chemical Trap apparently being something she's able to scavenge and create. This paired with her ability to silence her footsteps and her power gained from lockers, I would say she's in definite favor with the entity. Not only this, but she's probably a character who gets the otherwise more animalistic xenomorphs to create more emotion due to her overcoming and defeating them, something they will surely remember, being shot out of the airlock. Adam I think is pretty liked by the entity. He has a lot of perks that do give him strong effects, but he typically needs to work for them or build them up first for them to be effective, which seems like sort of a conscious trade-off. This for one plays into Adam's nature, but also does show some favor I think, providing clearly powerful abilities, but locking them behind a challenge to overcome. A definite show of favor I think. The Entity's favourites. Nia being liked by the Entity is a little sus, but it really does seem it. Nia is a character able to do many things that alter typical trial rules by quite a bit. Balance landing acts in a similar way to how killers drop down from areas, and gives her a substantial advantage over other survivors. She's also able to do things like extend item duration and even alter movement speeds like crouching that can rarely be altered. She's also a character with a lot of cosmetics featuring Entity creations or icons, which is a little sus again, but also maybe suggests a close bond to the Entity, and some definite favour for her. Bill is a highly altruistic character, and one that the Entity must favour, I think, with his strong perks. These strengths, I imagine, are allowed due to him being such a source of hope, but also extremely altruistic. He's another character with clear excellence in every survivor category, and is also a much more likely leader of the survivors nowadays over someone like Dwight, I would say. The Entity is favourable to Bill, I think, and his role as a protector. Jeff is a character seemingly liked by the Entity, and it could very well be down to his past and how he changed so much to this point today. In the realm, he is able to do quite powerful things such as destroy the Entity's hooks after being taken off them, further able to completely block the killer's ability to read his aura and track him briefly. These being substantially powerful abilities that are also sort of fair and don't seem defiant. Most of these abilities seem to stem from his artistry, as shown by the flavor text, all describing one of his art pieces. To me, that seems like he has quite strong emotions available, which is always favourable to the Entity. Laurie is a tough one to judge, and could be a character who goes either way depending on how you view it. I tend to think she is favoured and is meant to be the sort of foil to a lot of killers, punishing them with decisive strike for not playing the trials as intended. Tunneling, after all, is probably still a source of emotion for the Entity, but does lessen the overall amount gained from a trial when it happens. Laurie further has substantially powerful perks like Object of Obsession, and the ability to lessen the killer's aura abilities. These things seem to stem from her being the sole survivor of Myers. She's sort of using that experience. I tend to think she is simply favoured. She has a supernatural bond to the killer, and is likely a character many look up to in the realm. Laurie is also probably a good means to motivate Myers too, who otherwise seems quite emotionless with what he does. When it comes to Laurie, he has an obsession. Ace is a character that I think the Entity quite clearly likes, with him having many abilities that involve luck, and additional benefits in the realm, being able to extend aura reading range, gain luck, and pull better items from chests, and even have add-ons with those items. This may be sort of a mocking thing because luck isn't actually that powerful in the realm, it's actually quite useless. It could simply be favour though, which is how I tend to interpret it. Ace, after all, offers a different kind of emotion, being the only character in the realm to just be straight up smirking. Bro is happy he escaped his debt. Jake is a character who is either very defiant or very liked, and I tend to lean on the side of being liked. He's one of the first people the Entity picked, and he's a character who embodies everything needed to be a good survivor for the realm, able to survive, but also having a lot of hang-ups and inner conflicts. Jake seems very attuned with the realm due to his time alone surviving in the forest. He's able to calm the otherwise skittish crows of the realm. If we're taking the assumption that the crows act as a viewpoint for the Entity too, it suggests great favour, that he can calm them. He's further able to nearly negate his engine noises completely, and the big one, sabotage the hooks with just his hands. This is another thing that could be viewed as defiance, but I would say it's not, and largely down to the fact that sabotaging with toolboxes is a part of the game, and part of the back and forth between the two sides that produces emotion. Jake therefore seems favoured with his ability to do it without the need for a toolbox. Nicolas Cage is a character I think the Entity is a big fan of. He was taken after recreating how Blight was taken, and this could maybe seem almost amusing to the Entity. The Stampers are also people who seem to work in the Entity's favour in many cases too, so maybe the Entity did want Nick, and asked for a setup by means of Pauline. In the realm, Nick further has a bunch of abilities that are sort of busted and allow a bunch of different things to happen, like materializing items from thin air and fully reviving himself from the dying state. I think it enjoys the inclusion of Nicolas Cage in the realm and does appreciate how basically everyone, including characters like Chucky, know him too. Well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed. Please let me know your thoughts too down below. Thanks, and goodbye.